Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of The Great Ruler Season 2 Part 2 based on novel. So let's start. The door to the small building was tightly shut. Mu Chen gently eased it open and peeked inside at the spotless interior. Then, he stepped through the entrance and slowly opened the door to Luo Li's room. A faint fragrance wafted through the doorway, the kind that could captivate anyone who caught its scent. Mu Chen turned his eyes towards the window, where a young woman lazily reclined. She wore only a thin wrap that showed her pale, glossy legs. Her slender jade-like arms were wrapped around those legs, and her exquisite porcelain-like face was resting against one knee. Her long hair, usually tied up, was currently draped loosely over her shoulders, like a bright splash of the Milky Way. She was asleep. So relaxed and peaceful. Mu Chen looked at her with deep affection in his eyes. He slowly stepped closer. She sensed his presence the moment he entered her space. The tightly shut eyes snapped open and her clear pupils flushed with alarm. But that tension and alarm quickly dissipated when she laid eyes on the handsome youth at her side. A smile crept over her face as she exhaled a weak question that was filled with immeasurable joy. "You've returned?" Mu Chen studied her exquisite face. She was definitely looking a little pale. It didn't look like it was anything serious, but his heart still ached for her, and his anger towards He Yao boiled hotter. "I heard that you were injured?" Mu Chen asked as he moved a hand to cup Luo Li's tender cheek. Luo Li shrank from his cold touch and shook her head with a smile. "No, I wasn't." "Are you lying to me?" Mu Chen raised an eyebrow as he wrapped one arm around her slender waist, and the other below her knees, and pulled her into his embrace. Luo Li softly cried as she wrapped her jade-like arms around Mu Chen's neck. She stared at him in embarrassment and pouted her small lips. "You just got back, and already started bullying me." Mu Chen's heart pounded as he stared at the young woman pouting her small lips. It was a rare sight for the calm and distant Luo Li to show such a feminine side. Luo Li noticed that Mu Chen was staring at her rosy lips and flushed a light pink. She twisted around his arms with a displeased expression. "What are you trying to do? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. What do you think I'm trying to do?" Mu Chen teased. Before Luo Li could react, he bent down and kissed, gently tasting the sweet and fragrant delicacy. Luo Li stiffened at the sneak attack, but then surrendered to it. She loosened her hold around Mu Chen's neck and allowed him to do as he wished. Mu Chen enjoyed the warmth for a good moment, before putting her down. He couldn't help grinning as he looked at Luo Li, who was now gasping for breath and flushed deep red. "What a delicious taste. I must inform you that this taste now belongs to me." "As for how long, an eternity. You rogue. Dream on." Luo Li's face became a deep red from his embarrassing words. "Do you want me to bully you even harder?" Mu Chen grinned as he hugged her a little tighter. Luo Li glared at him and turned away, fuming. Mu Chen gently smiled as he laid Luo Li back on the soft bed. However, her arm was still around him, refusing to let go. Finally, he looked into her eyes and furrowed his brows. "How are your injuries?" Luo Li lightly shook her head. "It's nothing much. I just exhausted myself." They had the advantage of numbers, but if I'd been fighting seriously, then they wouldn't have gained an advantage. The experts of the Demon's Gate might be strong, but they are nothing we can't handle. The only problem is their boss, He Yao. While you were gone, I always had to make sure I saved enough strength to guard myself against him. Not even Mu Chen had an accurate gauge of Luo Li's strength. But since she could challenge more than 10 experts of the Demon's Gate all alone, then she should have at least reached the heavenly transformation stage. However, He Yao still hadn't made a move, so Luo Li had to keep her guard against him. That's why she'd held back and gotten injured by the other experts. He Yao, Mu Chen's black pupils flared with a chill. However, he quickly smiled again. "If that guy isn't going to act like a decent human being, then I don't have to treat him like one." "What are you going to do?" A look of concern flashed across Luo Li's face. The Demon's Gate and He Yao weren't that easy to deal with. Mu Chen snorted. They dared to hurt my woman. What kind of man would I be if I simply took that? Luo Li flushed red again and rolled her eyes at him. However, a soft arc rose at the corner of her mouth. Then, I'll go with you, Luo Li said flatly. He Yao wasn't weak. If Mu Chen went alone, it'd be hard for him to win. Mu Chen shook his head. A chill flickered in his black pupils. No. Let me handle this. At that, Luo Li knew that Mu Chen had already drawn his plans. There was nothing else she could do, so she unhappily rested her head against Mu Chen's chest and curled up in his arms like a kitten. Her long eyelashes blinked once, then closed as she absorbed his warmth and slowly fell asleep. Mu Chen gently smiled at her. She was sound asleep. But when he raised his head again, a chill clouded over his charming face. He Yao. I originally intended to let you be. But, since you brought the fight to me, then don't blame me for getting impolite. A deep night had settled over the compound. Mu Chen quietly stepped out from Luo Li's room and made his way to the roof. He twitched his fingers and the spiritual value point card appeared. A faint light illuminated the set of glittering icons on its surface. Mu Chen's eyes glazed over as he swept his eyes over the inventory, searching for the items he needed. He was furious. If he did nothing, then this would happen again. Since He Yao thought he had nothing to fear from him, then he'd teach him a good lesson. Even a heavenly transformation stage late-phase expert like Bai Xian had died by Mu Chen's hands. He had nothing to fear from a single He Yao. His eyes finally pinpointed the items he needed. Then, he stowed away the card, turned into a streak of light, and flew towards the spiritual value hall. The next day, Mu Chen left the house after saying goodbye to Luo Li. Zhu Ling and the others had already done as instructed, and passed Mu Chen's message to the Demon's Gate. The message caused some disturbance within the ranks of the Demon's Gate, but the majority of those experts were only laughing at it. True, Mu Chen had left a deep impression at the spirit battle stage, but no one thought he could compare to the top 10 of the heavenly ranking. Not to mention that the Demon's Gate had He Yao, rank 4 of the heavenly ranking. What could a single Mu Chen possibly do to them? They simply laughed it off. In fact, some of them even hoped that Mu Chen would actually pay them a visit. Did the boy really think that by receiving 3 moves from Li Xiantong, he would qualify to challenge their boss, He Yao? The members of the Demon's Gate acted like they were watching a show. Everyone had heard the news. After all, both Mu Chen and the Demon's Gate were well known within the academy. Everyone remembered the freshman who'd managed to take 3 moves from Li Xiantong. But if Mu Chen really went through with it this time, He Yao wasn't going to let him off with only 3 moves. How would Mu Chen handle it then? In just 2 or 3 days, everyone heard Mu Chen's announcement. But the strange thing was that Mu Chen, the protagonist of the event, had suddenly vanished without a trace. Some suspected that Mu Chen had hidden himself out of fear. In the Goddess Luo Association, not even Zhu Ling could find a trace of Mu Chen. But they never had any doubts about him. As someone who dared to challenge even Li Xiantong, he definitely wouldn't do something like run away. There must be a reason why Mu Chen had vanished without a trace. And time rapidly passed under all the boiling suspicions. The headquarters of the Demon's Gate was located at the north end of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. It was a place filled with pavilions. Everyone there was a member of the Demon's Gate. You could say it was the Demon's Gate's territory within the academy grounds. Right now, there was quite a crowd gathered in the main hall of the largest and central pavilion. At the head of the hall sat He Yao, casually sipping from a teacup. On his right, stood Yan Hong and a number of the Demon's Gate core members. Boss, tomorrow is the 5th day. What kind of game is Mu Chen trying to play? He still hasn't shown himself. A lean man asked in a low voice. His name was Chen Hu, ranked 18 in the heavenly ranking, and a heavenly transformation stage initial phase. Just a few days earlier, he'd lost to Luo Li. The others nodded. As the deadline drew closer, their curiosity grew stronger. Could Mu Chen have really run away? He Yao faintly smiled and looked down into his tea. A white mist was curling up from its surface, the entire cup had frozen over as ice. He tightened his grip and the cup, frozen tea and all, shattered into pieces. What is there to guess about? We'll find out tomorrow. A freshman who managed to take 3 moves from Li Xiantong, haha, I'd really like to see what he'll do. Mockery filled his eyes. If he dares to show himself, then I'll make him understand that in this Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, there isn't a single person who can mouth off at my Demon's Gate. Demon's Gate headquarters. The place was clearly livelier than usual. The courts outside the ring of pavilions was jam-packed. There were people on the ground, in the sky, and even standing on rooftops. Even more were on their way. In 5 days, the news about Mu Chen and the Demon's Gate had spread far and wide. Mu Chen had already gained a reputation for his pact of 3 moves with Li Xiantong. That event had astonished everyone and engraved his name into the minds of many upperclassmen. But even still, everyone believed that he was a long ways away from someone like He Yao, who was a genuinely powerful figure. The pact of 3 moves had displayed Mu Chen's potential and talent, however, it didn't represent his true strength. Without that restriction, there was no way Mu Chen could have competed against a powerful expert like Li Xiantong. Even though He Yao was only ranked number 4, there was no doubt that he was strong. Many even felt that He Yao was strong enough to take rank 3, but was just being patient. But either way, rank 4 was enough to show how powerful He Yao was. And now Mu Chen wanted to pay a visit to the Demon's Gate to repay a blood debt. It wouldn't be an easy task. Hundreds and thousands of Demon's Gate's members were already gathered in the spacious plaza in front of the Demon's Gate headquarters. Most of them were laughing and joking with each other, without the slightest care. In fact, many of them had mocking sneers plastered on their faces. They wanted to see how this loud-mouthed freshman would come and stir up trouble on their doorstep. He Yao sat, expressionless, in a tall chair at the very front of the headquarters. His face was stone-cold, except for the brightness of his pupils. Behind him stood the core members of the Demon's Gate, and Yang Hong, who was towards the side. That guy was no longer arrogant or overbearing. True, his talent wasn't bad, but he was still only a freshman. There was no way he could compare to He Yao, and he knew that, so he made the wise decision of joining He Yao. By borrowing the Demon's Gate's fame, he could break free from Mu Chen's shadow. As long as he worked hard to cultivate, he'd definitely surpass Mu Chen once again. Flames lit up in Yang Hong's eyes. He will endure it, for now, but one fine day, he'd stand at the top of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Whether it's Mu Chen or He Yao, he'd stand above them all. The sky above the plaza was filled with countless students who'd come to observe. When they saw Demon's Gate's formation, they inwardly scared. It looked like all of the Demon's Gate core experts were present. They were waiting for Mu Chen to arrive. Is the Demon's Gate using their formation to try and scare Mu Chen from coming? TSK. At the front of that group is He Yao, rank 4 of the heavenly ranking. Chen Hu and the other 2 are ranked in the top 20s, and there are quite a few others in the top 50s. The Demon's Gate's strength is formidable indeed. Looks like Mu Chen kicked an iron panel this time. That guy really likes to stir up trouble. I heard he also got into a fight with Xu Huang. And now, it's with He Yao. But this time, that lucky guy is doomed. Based on their whispers, they'd already decided on today's outcome. A particular group of people stood on the roof of a building, looking towards the plaza. The one leading them was Xu Huang, and next to him was Xu Qingqing. He sneered, that Mu Chen still causes trouble everywhere he goes. The moment things get peaceful, he goes and knocks on the Demon's Gate's door. Does he really think He Yao is that easy to deal with? Big brother, do you think he's actually going to turn up? Xu Qingqing asked him. Xu Huang knitted his brows and looked around, but couldn't pinpoint Mu Chen's figure. However, his expression remained the same. Mu Chen will definitely appear. Don't underestimate him. If you give him another year, there will definitely be a spot for him in the top 5 of the heavenly ranking. Xu Qingqing snorted, unconvinced. That brat wanted to enter the top 5 of the heavenly ranking? How was that be possible? His pact of 3 moves with Li Xiantong wasn't even a genuine fight. He'll definitely appear. But as to whether he can actually deal with this situation, that's an entirely different question. Xu Huang scanned the surroundings again. He really didn't understand what Mu Chen could possibly do in this kind of situation, with his current ability. A few rooftops away were Su Xian, Su Linga, Li Qing, and Guo Xiong, who'd clearly rushed over after hearing the news. "Big sister, why hasn't Mu Chen appeared yet?" Su Linga anxiously asked as she kept looking around. "Really? That guy just got back to the academy and he's already at it again. But this time, there's not going to be a pact of 3 moves. I heard that He Yao was the one who caused this. After Mu Chen left, he sent his soldiers to stir up trouble with the goddess Luo Association. Luo Li defeated them all, though I heard she also suffered some injuries," Guo Xiong explained. "Mu Chen and He Yao haven't really crossed paths before. It seems He Yao's hatred is because the spot for that mission went to Mu Chen." Li Qing offered with furrowed brows. Her tone implied her impression of He Yao. Su Xian nodded. She'd known for a long time that He Yao was a narrow-minded sort of person. But she never expected him to hate Mu Chen for something that small. "Big sister, you must help Mu Chen if anything happens," Su Linga pleaded. Su Xian lightly nodded. "I'm also responsible for this, so, of course, I won't sit by and watch as He Yao bullies him. However, we can't underestimate Mu Chen, either. He's not someone who speaks rashly. Since Mu Chen announced it, then he must have some confidence in dealing with this matter. He's the sort of guy who doesn't even fear someone like Mo Longzi. If He Yao wants to pressure him, that's ridiculous." Li Qing and Guo Xiong also thought the same way. After that period of getting along with Mu Chen, they'd come to understand just how many unexpected tricks that youth had up his sleeves. They still didn't know how today's events would turn out. The goddess Luo Association is here. A disturbance started in the skies, and everyone's eyes turned towards the plaza's main road. Several hundred figures were quickly rushing down the road. Most of them were freshmen. Their formation was a bit weaker than the one they were confronting, but each of them had their jaws set. Leading them was a young woman in black with exceptionally exquisite features. Her clear and diamond-like pupils were deep and calm, and her long hair was bright like the Milky Way as it draped down her slender waist. Everyone looked at the woman in black with alarm in their eyes. Even Su Xian couldn't help praising her temperament. "She's Luo Li? Not a bad woman. No wonder even Mu Chen fell for her." Su Linga was pouting again, but even she couldn't deny that Luo Li was exceptional. Not only in appearance, but also in the way she carried herself. The members of the Goddess Luo Association followed Luo Li's leadership and marched into the vast plaza. The moment Chen Hu and his allies saw Luo Li, they quickly averted their eyes. Their previous fight had been enough to publicly shame them once, and the worst part of it was that they still hadn't gained an advantage. Their fight had made them understand that among the freshmen, Mu Chen probably wasn't the most formidable one, it was this beautiful girl who'd kept herself hidden. He Yao stared at Luo Li and something stirred in his eyes as he took in her composure and features. In the past, he'd believed that Su Xian was the loveliest woman in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. But this girl standing before him was even lovelier than her. That bastard had such great luck with women. He Yao narrowed his eyes as he swept his eyes over the new arrivals. "What about Mu Chen? Didn't he send a message that he'd pay our Demon's Gate a visit? Why is he hiding in his turtle shell when the time has come?" Luo Li replied with a calm and clear voice. "He said he'd come, so he'll come. All you need to do is just wait." He Yao angrily laughed at Luo Li's calm reply. "Wait? What arrogance! Just who does he think he is? Is he worth our Demon's Gate's time to wait?" Had that guy even thought about what He Yao's reputation was, and what his reputation was? 1. Luo Li's long eyelashes slightly fluttered down as she replied, "If you're that impatient, then I can entertain you a while. But be careful not to lose your standing as the rank 4 of the heavenly ranking." Shocked exclamations instantly burst out in the plaza and expressions filled with disbelief were aimed at the young woman in black. The crowd clearly hadn't expected such a beautiful girl to say such threatening words. Su Xian smiled. It's a little similar to the way Mu Chen speaks. He Yao's face drained of color as he slowly stood up. What big words. If you want to seize my standing, then we'll have to see if you qualified. When he finished speaking, a frightening spiritual energy pressure exploded from his body, like a tsunami. He was clearly enraged by Luo Li's words. Yi Qingling, who stood behind Luo Li, paled when she saw that. There wasn't a single ripple in Luo Li's eyes as she stepped forward and prepared to take action. Let me handle today's matter. Just as Luo Li was about to act, a clear and bright laughter rang throughout the plaza, causing a huge commotion. Everyone quickly searched for the source. The voice came from one towering construct at the edge of the plaza. A young man had been sitting there for who knows how long. His eyes were ice cold as they became fixed on He Yao and his followers. 1. He Yao's reputation and Mu Chen's reputation. It's Mu Chen. As everyone's gaze gathered towards the youth that was on the top of the building, they instantly yelled in surprise. Among the Goddess Luo Association's members, Yi Qingling and the rest had joy filling their eyes as they saw that figure. Mu Chen had finally showed up. It's true that he appeared. HMPH, I'll see how will he deal with the situation before him. Otherwise, the fame that he got from the Pact of Three moves with great difficulty will be entirely lost. Xu Qingqing coldly snorted. Xu Huang's gaze was also directed at Mu Chen. At this time, there still weren't any ripples in the eyes of the latter. However, in his eyes, while there was some faint fatigue, there still wasn't any panic. What is that fella trying to do? Xu Huang frowned his brows as he mumbled. In the plaza, He Yao's eyes turned cold as he stared at Mu Chen's figure and faintly mocked, "You finally showed yourself. Not to reciprocate against etiquette." Back then, the Demon's Gate paid a visit to the Goddess Luo Association. And today, I will return the favor. Mu Chen looked at He Yao as he smiled. Oh. He Yao sneered, then, what are you trying to do? That's simple, get all those people that stirred trouble at the Goddess Luo Association to apologize. Thereafter, I'll need senior brother He Yao to expel Yang Hong from the Demon's Gate. That guy is always calculating, and if he remains in the Demon's Gate, it'd be unfortunate for you. Mu Chen faintly smiled. When Mu Chen spoke, it instantly caused a huge commotion. Dream on. Behind He Yao, Chen Hu and the rest all had ashen faces as they barked. On one side, Yang Hong's face was also dark. He found such a great backer like the Demon's Gate. If he's expelled, then he would thoroughly lose his face. This request of Mu Chen's was rather too much. He Yao's gaze turned ice cold. He stared at Mu Chen as a smear of disdain rose to the corner of his mouth. What are you? You dare to make comments of my Demon's Gate? You're just a bunch of freshmen. When Chen Hu and the rest made a trip to the Goddess Luo Association back then, it was just to teach their juniors some of the rules in the academy. Not only are you guys not grateful, you guys still dare to oust them out. Regarding this problem, I've not pursued this matter, and yet, you guys still dare to come find us instead. As he spoke, everyone's face in the Goddess Luo Association turned ugly. Clearly, they never thought that He Yao would be so shameless. Mu Chen's gaze dropped as he smiled, then, what are you? You also dared to comment about my Goddess Luo Association? To teach others the rules, you qualified to do so. The surroundings became silent and many people smacked their lips. This Mu Chen truly wasn't simple. Even when facing He Yao, his words didn't give him the slightest face. He Yao's face turned darker, little by little. The spiritual energy around him rippled even more violently. Shortly after, he coldly smiled and sat back down on his chair. What courage! Since that's the case, then let me inform you that your request is denied. Furthermore, the one that's apologizing isn't my Demon's Gate but your Goddess Luo Association. His gaze was dark as he stared at Mu Chen. If you're not going to apologize, then I'll let you guys leave here and return, lying down. When he finished his speech, he leaned against his chair and coldly smiled. He wanted to see what Mu Chen will do since he said such foolish words in his Demon's Gate's headquarters. In the Goddess Luo Association, only Mu Chen, as well as that girl named Luo Li, was powerful enough. But just relying on their two strengths to intimidate the Demon's Gate with him in command was too much of a fantasy. When He Yao finished his speech, the surrounding gazes were, once again, directed at Mu Chen. He Yao had already said that he would not accept any requests. Whatever happened next would have to depend on the means that Mu Chen possessed. Every gaze was directed at Mu Chen. At this moment, the latter was looking at He Yao with an indifferent gaze. Shortly after, he lightly smiled. Except in this smile, there was a small hint of dangerous in it. Since that's the case, he quietly muttered as he spread his hands out and slowly shut both of his eyes. The surrounding gazes were staring at Mu Chen with bits of curiosity because they are clearly unsure of what he was doing. He Yao's indifferent and cold gaze made the members of the Demon's Gate switch to an alert state. After all, Mu Chen's current action was a little too weird. Could it be that he got some powerful means up his sleeves? The atmosphere felt as though it was frozen at this moment. Silence paced back and forth in this region. What caused everyone to be astonished was that despite them waiting, there were no movements from Mu Chen. Everyone exchanged a glance as they pondered over what Mu Chen was trying to do. What is he doing? Su Ling'er was also a little lost as she blankly asked Su Xian. Su Xian's brow slightly frowned as she stared at Mu Chen. Vaguely, she seemed to have sensed some peculiar ripples. Furthermore, these ripples don't seem to be limited to only Mu Chen's surroundings. She swept her gaze around and realized that these ripples seemed to be surrounding the entire headquarters of the Demon's Gate. Boom, asterisk. With the atmosphere frozen, suddenly a fine vibrating sound was heard. When everyone directed their gazes over, they saw cracks appear on a pavilion that wasn't far away from Mu Chen. Huge stones were collapsing from the pavilion and, shortly after, light was spreading out from the pavilion. The light was like a spiritual energy light ray as it slowly extended itself up from the pavilion. Boom, asterisk. As the pavilion collapsed, another pavilion in another direction also collapsed. Boom, asterisk. Boom, asterisk. Collapsing sounds were constantly heard as everyone's line of sight shifted all around in bewilderment. Thereafter, they saw 10 towering pavilions collapse in this region in just a few minutes. The 10 peculiar dazzling lights were like several scorching suns as they rose and surrounded the headquarters of the Demon's Gate within them. What's that? Everyone directed their lines of sight towards the 10 huge lumps of light that were rising in amazement, as well as doubts. While everyone was busy being amazed, the 10 lumps of light continued to slowly rise up. Vaguely, they sensed violent spiritual energy ripples coming from them. That, Su Xian, Xu Huang, as well as those pinnacle students were watching as the lumps of light expanded. The spiritual energy's trajectory made their pupils shrink back. Spiritual arrays. Those are all spiritual arrays, Su Xian said as she slowly sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Spiritual arrays? Su Ling'er and the rest were shocked as they cried out, all of those are spiritual arrays? How is that possible? How can Mu Chen lay out so many spiritual arrays at once? Just how many spiritual seals are needed in order to control them? From the looks of those spiritual arrays, they are all probably rank 3 spiritual arrays. But in order to lay out 10 rank 3 spiritual arrays at once, it'd require a rank 5 spiritual array master, at the very least, right? But clearly, it was impossible for Mu Chen to achieve the height of a rank 5 spiritual array master, which is comparable to a heavenly completion stage expert. If he managed to reach that height, wouldn't he have long become the #1 figure in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy? No, these spiritual arrays seemed to be at the fledgling stage of being engraved. Su Xian's brows frowned again as she looked at Mu Chen, whose eyes were still tightly shut. These spiritual arrays seemed to have been directly engraved onto these pavilions. So, the reason why Mu Chen went missing was to hide here and engrave the spiritual arrays. If that's the case, all he'd be required to do was form the spiritual seals required to activate these spiritual arrays and control them. This way, he'd be able to completely activate these spiritual arrays. But if 10 rank 3 spiritual arrays were activated at the same time, the might of them would be extremely terrifying. However, can Mu Chen really control 10 rank 3 spiritual arrays? That fellow truly does have some means up his sleeves. On another construct, Xu Huang was looking at the 10 lumps of light that were rising in the headquarters of the Demon's Gate. His expression turned grave, so the reason why he went missing these last few days wasn't to hide, but to conceal himself in the headquarters of the Demon's Gate and engrave the spiritual arrays. So, from the beginning, he already had this all planned out. What's the use of just engraving spiritual arrays? With his strength, isn't he just dreaming if he wants to engrave the amount of spiritual seals needed for 10 rank 3 spiritual arrays? Xu Qingqing was also shocked by the scene before her, but she was still reluctant to admit how good Mu Chen was. Xu Huang nodded as his gaze closely stared at Mu Chen, whose eyes were tightly shut. Could the latter really achieve that step? These changes had clearly caused an uproar in the region. In the plaza, those at the Demon's Gate had their expressions change as a smear of uneasiness flashed across their eyes. The surrounding floating 10 lumps of light gave them a huge amount of pressure. A rank 3 spiritual array could threaten a heavenly fusion stage. But if all 10 of the spiritual arrays were activated at the same time, even the heavenly fusion stage experts would have to run as far as they could. At their front, He Yao's eyes were still deadly fixed on those huge lumps of light, and his eyes were dark. That fellow actually laid down these things right under their noses and, in spite of everything, they didn't realize it at all. However, I refuse to believe that with his strength at the heavenly fusion stage middle phase, he could control so many rank 3 spiritual arrays. His eyes were ice cold as he coldly smiled. Under the countless gazes, Mu Chen's surroundings fluctuated with powerful spiritual energy ripples. However, the current Mu Chen still had his eyes tightly shut. He shut out all the disturbances from the outside world and was focused in the heart array state's perfect control down to the finest detail. The current him already had a deep comprehension towards the heart array state. Even if his eyes were tightly shut, the outside world seemed to have been engraved inside his heart. Shortly after, images of formless wind and ripples of heaven and earth's spiritual auras appeared in his heart. However, by just depending on the heart array state, it was still impossible for him to form so many spiritual seals to activate all those spiritual arrays. His spiritual energy was clearly insufficient to control them all. However, the corner of Mu Chen's lips slightly rose as the palm that was in his sleeve rose. A light flashed and a round white pearl that was flickering with white light appeared. It was as though a white dragon was spiraling within the pearl. This item was the White Dragon spiritual pearl that he got from the White Dragon sovereign. Within the White Dragon spiritual pearl, there was a vast amount of spiritual energy. Borrowing the power within it, Mu Chen could form all of the spiritual seals that he required. This video will end here.